right, we got a big night of fights going down Saturday night in sunny Las Vegas. UFC 276. Joining me to break down a few of the big ones is undefeated UFC lightweight contender, the Olympian, Mark O. Madsen. Mark, what's up and how's your training coming along?
I am up in Ohio and I am working very hard. So I haven't been this sore for a long time. So I'm pretty excited about the training and let's go get the win.
Fantastic. All right, so let's not beat around the bush here. Let's get right into the action here, American. Let's start, right at the top of the card. The main event, the middleweight title is on the line. Israel Adesanya defending against Jared Cannonier. We got Adesanya as a pretty big favorite here, right around minus 400. So do you think Cannonier has a shot here, or is Adesanya just going to keep rolling here at the top of the middleweight division?
So I think Israel Adesanya is going to keep rolling, and I have him as the favorite and the winner of the fight. Jared Cannonier he's a very good fighter. He's a good striker. He has good leg kicks, good straight punches, good defense wrestling. So he's a solid fighter, but I think this fight is actually about who manages the distance best. And when it comes to distance management, I just think Israel Adesanya he's the best in the world at this. So I'll give this fight to Israel.
Okay, we are in definite agreement there. I'm going to look to get a little bit better value, though. I'm going to take Adesanya to win by decision. You get that at plus money, plus 120. Actually, and the reasons are simple. He's been going to decision quite a bit here. 4 of his last 5 fights have all gone to the scorecards, 8 of 12 in the UFC. And the reasons are pretty simple. You know, he's in no rush out there. He's a bit of a counter striker, so he's going to take his time and be patient and try to find a spot. And we saw the blueprint for how to beat him. Jan Blachowicz showed it to us. It's try to wrestle with him, try to grapple with him, try to put him on his back. If you go in there ultra aggressive like Paulo Costa, it might not work out very well. So I think we might see a more patient game plan from Cannonier, which might chew up a little bit of clock. Okay, so on to the co-main event. Big-time trilogy fight here. We got Alexander Volkanovski coming in right around minus 180, taking on Max Holloway, coming back at plus 155. The 145-pound title is on the line here for the third time. So pretty similar fights the first 2 rounds. So my question for you, Mark, is do you think we're going to see anything different compared to the first 2 fights? And if Max can't get the W here, do you think he's going to be done at the 145-pound weight division, considering that would be 3 losses to the man at the top?
I think this is one of the hardest fights to call on this card. I'm picking Volkanovski as the winner. And I don't see Max Holloway is finished anyway. He's still one of the best in the world. He's still beating, the best in the world. I just think Volkanovski is too good. The fight we saw against Zombie, he looked absolutely amazing. He didn't take any damage. Max Holloway, on the other hand, had a tough fight with Yair Rodriguez, took some damage. If we go back to the 2 fights they had before this, the first fight was all about leg kicks. Max adjusted. Second fight, it was about the wrestling. So we saw Volkanovski adjust a little bit. And I think this fight is really, really, really interesting. That's why it's so hard to call, because both of them are world-class athletes. I mean, it's the champ against the contender here. And then who is really able to adjust the best to the style? I have to go with Volkanovski. He looked amazing, and it's a really, really tough fight to call.
So what would you think would be next for Max? Because I'm on Volkanovski here as well. And, there's not a whole lot of places he can go in this weight division if he loses to Volkanovski for a 3rd time. A 4th fight would be very unlikely to happen. So do you think we see him stick around in that division or maybe even move up to 155?
That is a very good question. I still see Max Holloway as a true legend in the sport. And I mean, there is a lot of options for him. Let's keep in mind, there's still a fight on Saturday. Max Holloway is most certainly in this fight. So, I mean, this is MMA. Anything can happen. So I wouldn't count him out, because we've seen Max Holloway rock I mean, he actually caught Volkanovski a couple of times. So I think he's going out there to try and knock out Volkanovski. So let's keep the horses a little bit and see what happens on on Saturday before we start speculating in what's going to happen next.
Absolutely. And I 100% understand the case for Holloway, considering how close the first two fights were. A lot of people thought Holloway, got robbed in the second decision there. But like you, I do like Volkanovski here. I'm going to look to get a little bit extra value. I think we're in for a long fight again. I don't see either of these guys getting finished. It's been almost 10 years since each of them were finished in an MMA fight. And I think it's going to be a long one once again. And you look at what they've done since the second fight, and they both look great, but I think Volkanovski's looked just a little bit better. He absolutely destroyed the Korean Zombie. He looked great versus Brian Ortega, despite almost getting choked out. He showed a lot of grit to hop out of that one. Okay, so Mark, let's take a look at our final fight here. There's no title on the line, but most likely a title shot will be on the line. Middleweight fight here. We got Sean Strickland taking on Alex Pereira. So a couple questions for you about this one. You could give us your prediction as well. So Israel Adesanya, we all know what the style or what the storyline is. Pereira's on a bit of a fast track to get a title shot, despite not really facing a whole lot of big time contenders. And Israel Adesanya says that Pereira is being overhyped. And that's kind of interesting because he's lost to him twice in kickboxing. So what do you make of that opinion?
Yeah, that might actually be a sign of him trying to remove some of the hype, maybe even being a little bit of, afraid of fighting Alex Pereira. I mean, we have to keep in mind, Alex Pereira is only 1 year into MMA, but he is still one of the best glory boxers of all times. I mean, he knocked out Israel Adesanya. I mean, he's been put in this fight, I think, because the UFC want to see the fight against both of them, Alex Pereira versus Israel Adesanya. But I mean, we still have a fight. We always know when Sean Strickland is in the game, it's a fight.
Yeah, and Adesanya, he's got a lot of opinions about Sean Strickland too. He said he would never spar with an idiot like Sean Strickland because of the fact that he's hurt his training partners in the past. So you've been in the gym a lot. What do you make of that opinion? Would you feel comfortable training with the guy who's injured training partners during training sessions?
Absolutely not. And I agree 100% with Adesanya on this one. So when it comes to fighting, being a professional fighter, I mean, you have the time in the gym, but you have to keep in mind that the only time we're actually making money on this, it's when you fight. And it is, at the end of the day, it's about providing not only for yourself, but also for our families. So putting it all into gym is not a sustainable way to be a professional fighter. So I agree 100% with Adesanya on this one. And I would not spar with a guy that would go into the gym and deliberately try to knock his training partners out. That's just not good business.
Yeah, he's a true madman, but I'm going to take that madman to win this fight here. I think he's being undervalued a little bit. We're seeing Pereira as a small favorite at a lot of sports books now. And I just think Strickland, I think this is a massive jump in competition for him. I put him at around minus 140, and he's on a pretty good run himself here. 6-0 in his last 6 fights. And one of those wins that really stands out to me is a fight against Uriah Hall, a very talented striker who he was able to get down on the mat a couple times. And that's what probably paved the way to victory there. So I'll take Strickland there and see him maybe get the next title shot against Adesanya. So that about does it there, Mark. Thank you once again for joining us. But if you want more coverage on UFC 276, make sure you check out the Vegas Insider podcast. I sat down, we talked about the main fights in depth, including some hot takes and opinions on Sean O'Malley. So you can check that out wherever you find podcasts, and you can catch all your MMA and UFC betting news over at VegasInsider.com. Good luck out there.